tell all the young people that I work with, my student, I teach the Navy cadet in the University of Haifa, and I tell them, don't think that there is someone that knows better than you about what is good for you. Have some chutzpah when you talk to even older people, even Chavrei Knesset member. Don't think they know better than you. Take your future in your hand. Make sure that you are active, that you are getting up in the morning to change the reality, and you can change it.
Hi, it's Ellin Bessner, and you're listening to North Star, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News for Friday, January 2nd, 2026, and made possible thanks to the support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Today, we're bringing you what Jewish Canada sounded like from a few weeks ago, when the CJN teamed up with the Shalom Hartman Institute, Beth Tzedek Synagogue in Toronto, and Holy Blossom Temple to host an event called Pathways to Hope, a conversation with young Israeli changemakers. It was held at Beth Tzedek. The Hartman Institute runs a project called Chazon, which mentors Israeli university students who are activists on campus in the pro-democracy movement and other social justice issues in Israel. Two of the students joined a Hartman Institute vice president on stage to discuss what's giving them hope, their vision for the future of Israel, and what it means to enact democracy as Israel heads towards an election in October. The CJN's producer Zachary Kauffman moderated the panel, and here's the recording of that live event.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. As Rabbi Frachter said, my name is Zachary Kauffman. I work at the Canadian Jewish News. A lot of the stories we hear in the news focus on the challenges the Jewish community faces. And something that I'm proud of the CJN for is that it highlights the fact that there are some of the greatest, smartest, most talented Jews making incredible work right now. Whether it's the mikveh being built in Kelowna or a Jewish community in Halifax, there are Jewish musicians and artists and creators and thinkers living, working, creating amazing stuff right now. And we deserve to hear about it. We deserve to discuss our challenges seriously. So I encourage you to listen to our wonderful podcasts, encourage you to pick up a magazine on our way out, and I certainly encourage you to subscribe. So thank you very much for being here. And I would like to start, we're here to talk about Chazon. What is Chazon? What's its mission? And what's the story of the program?
So I want to take it one step back to the question of why even talk about hope now in Israel. Israel is in the most crucial junction now of moving from being a warrior nation, a nation at war, to what we hope will be a peaceful nation, or at least a nation that is not in war. And this very delicate junction is a place where questions of how do we take the immense amount of solidarity that we saw during the war and of the people who went out to the streets to rally for the hostages and translate that into healing of the really painful rifts that we have in our society. What does it mean to think about Israeli social fabric in this time? And how do we take the idea that every person was created in the image of God, whether they're Jews or Arabs, citizens of Israel, and manage to make it into a pathway forward? And so you need to take all the energy of despair that we had during the last 2 and even 3 years since the beginning of the judicial overhaul that we will talk about, and translate that into the energy of hope. In order to be able to do that, you need the knowledge, because it's about building a vision. What do you want the future to look like? You need the tools, and you need the community. And that's what Chazon is about, because Chazon aims to identify and select and bring together the most brilliant social activists, young students, young adults, who are mostly in their first degree in the university, for a meeting every week of 4 hours of studying with the lead Hartman scholars, meeting with activists and learning leadership tools, and then working on formulating the idea of how do you bring Judaism and democracy and translate it into action? How do you take the big ideas that the Hartman Institute works to develop and to promote and translate into social activism? And we are currently in our third year of Chazon. We have this year 71 wonderful participants and already 170 alumni of the first 2 years of the program. And this network is also a space where we want to encourage the initiatives and the work that the Chazon alumni are doing to translate these ideas to whatever it is that they're doing to build a better future in Israel.
And what does Chazon mean?
Chazon means vision. So the idea is that leadership has to start with an understanding of what kind of future we want to see. And we talk a lot about the fact that repairing Israel has to begin with the way we tell the story of Israel and the way we understand our past and the way we foresee our future. And in order to be able to do that, there's a lot of learning that needs to be done on our Jewish values and Jewish sources. So Chazon, vision, takes these ideas and through learning of text, whether it's around the covenant of fate or covenant of destiny, or whether it's around the question of what does pluralism mean in Judaism and how to take empathy and use it in order to understand reality, and then to think about how do you make it into a work plan for building initiatives.
Can I hear in a few sentences about yourselves what brought you to Chazon and what type of projects you're working on?
I will try to make it short. It's great to be here, even in this weather. It's my first time in Canada and my first time in North America. It's very exciting.
This is basically it. This is...
Yeah, just a lot of synagogues.
Yeah.
I will say very shortly that since in October 7th, I went to reserve duty. I'm a commander in the infantry unit. And when I got back from reserve duty in Gaza and before that in the Gaza envelope, I was very confused on what to do with myself. And I went back to the university, and it was very difficult to study again. And I wanted to be useful. I wanted to do stuff, and I need to be focused. And some friends of mine that are amazing activists I am on the second
cohort.
Second year of Chazon, and some friends of mine that were on the first year tell me, listen, it's a very great program. And I said, okay, I will go. And I really found like a place to talk about the experience that I had in Gaza and the thought that I had and what is happening to Israel, and to make like a work plan. And it gave me like an amazing boost to be an activist and to do stuff. And the stuff that I do now, it's in direct result from my year in Chazon.
What type of issues are you most interested in?
I'm very focused on the election. The election in Israel gonna be held in October of 2026, hopefully. And I work with a lot of the youth of, I worked for Brother and Sisters in Arms for Democracy inside the campuses of the universities, and try to promote liberal value, promote them to vote to the right parties. The right party, not...
Party on the right. No.
You understand? The liberal and democratic parties that will have the impact and will form the new coalition, hopefully, that will change Israel. I have a lot of hope that we can win this election, a lot of hope. And I think when we will win this election, we can start to heal, we can start to repair, we can march forward, and it will be much better for us and also for you in North America, the Jewish community. It's been very hard for you in the last 2 years, and my government is not doing anything to help you, and you are doing a lot to help us. You should be paid by our government, for my opinion, and at least they need to help you in many ways.
So first of all, I'm very excited to be back in Canada. I did a gap year in Montreal. I love the snow, so thank you for this weather. Really, I really appreciate that. We don't have that in Israel.
Can I say that you did when they landed and it started snowing, they did a little shechian in the snow. It was very sweet.
Yes. So I'm very, very happy to be here. So thank you. How I got to Chazon. I'm a political activist. I started to be very active when I started my first degree in the Hebrew University. And on my second year, the judicial reform started. And me and my student friends decided that we cannot longer sit inside the campus and just watch our country become way less democratic and less Jewish in our opinion, just like falling apart. So we decided to establish this like a lot of students all over Israel that are protesting together. And we did that for, I think, 38 or 40 weeks. And then the war broke out. And on the same Saturday, my friends and we established this civic situation room on 12 o'clock on the same Saturday because we realized that people do not have where to go. They need to be evacuated from active war zones, and the government and the officials were not there to help. So we understood that we are a group that knows how to work together. So we're now trying our best to help whoever needs help. So we established that civic situation room. It was operating for 4 months. But in the first days, we realized that we did not have, for the last 40 weeks and on the few days after the war broke out, we did not have a chance to sit down in the same room and think about what we're doing and maybe think of better tools, on better ways how to handle the reality, because to that point, reality was throwing things on us that we needed to fix and we needed to react to. So we went to Hartman Institute and we said, hello, we need help. We really, really need help. So that's how we established the first group of Chazon. And that was the first safe space we had. It was actually amazing and so not obvious in these times. We started the first group a month, I think, after the war broke out. So it was still very crazy. We were still operating, but we had these 4 hours a week sitting together in a room and discussing and hearing other people's opinions or maybe ways to how we can handle the situation. And that's how I got to Chazon, yes.
Just want you to understand what it meant. A month after the war, we were all still in shock. And I mean, I don't need to tell you how difficult it was emotionally and in all ways. And then we're called in by this wonderful group of people. We came and we met you. There were like 7 or 8 of you around the table. And they said to us, as Ayala said, we need the tools and we also need the help in thinking about the vision. And suddenly you're seeing people who understand, who came together to do this work and understand that there is no responsible adult in the room and that it's on them. And they said to us, we understand that now it's our turn and we need your help. But just seeing that group of people, those young people who know that they take responsibility, now it's our turn. It was, for me, one of the most helpful things that have happened during that month.
You spoke a little bit about the protests. Like you said, this happened week after week throughout the judicial overhaul, crowding into Rabin Square, Hostage Square, into Kikar Paris in Jerusalem, week after week. What do you think the effects of the protests are? Do you think it persuades the Israeli public? Do you think it affects Israeli decision makers? What's the effect of the protests for the people on the outside? And how did it affect you on the inside also?
I think the protests against the judicial reform, I think it worked because it delayed a lot of the rules and a lot of the thing that the government wanted to do didn't work and the action didn't took place. And when it's come to the hostage, I think listen, it's the historian in me is talking, but to release hostages in Israel, you have to protest. There were no hostages in history that were released early without protest. If it's the soldier from Nahal that were taken hostage in the 80s, that the mother of one of the soldiers used to jump on Rabin's car to make sure that he will released, and he was released. If it's Gilad Shalit, hostage doesn't get released if it's not by protest in Israel. It doesn't work like this. When you talk about the people from like Esek Abish in the 50s, it took them almost 20 years to get released. And the government didn't even admit that they were Israelis. So you cannot release hostages in Israel without a protest. I think the protest worked. Not worked enough because we lost some on the way. It's such a big tragedy, huge tragedy. And when we talk about convincing people, I don't think you convince the Israeli public to join you and maybe think like you through protest. You do it to leverage the decision makers and to give community to the people that care and the people that protest and give them hope. But there is other way to convince people, I think. And through the stuff that we do in the campus, through Brother and Sister in Arms, and through the Social Justice Center, and through lecture that we give to a lot of different demographic in Israel, we convince people. But the protests they're important. Nothing get done. Nothing would have gone done without the protests. The hostages wouldn't come back, and judicial reform would have taken place. I think it delayed it, and I think it made sure that the hostage come back.
And if I can elaborate, I agree with Yonathan, and if I can elaborate on the community part that the protests made. So my best group of friends right now are people that I protest with since day one, 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago on the streets. And I think that if you don't protest or if you're not part of this group, it's maybe a little bit hard to understand why we're so together. And it's because being in a protest, it's very tough. I mean, you're being on the streets, on the road, you're having police violence, you're having all of these people that disagree with you and sometimes are not very polite, like here in Canada, we're Israelis. And you have all of these things coming at you, and you're standing there with other people that truly care about the country, that want a better future for Israel. And I remember when I used to lose hope, because it's very, very tough. In the protest against the judicial reform and after the war, it's very hard to stay there without the community that we created. So that's a key thing to understand about the protest. That's what kept people going out on the streets. And I agree, I think the hostages, they come back from Gaza and they say, oh yeah, we saw people protesting for us. We saw people that don't know us personally with signs with our faces on them. And for me, that was like the biggest reason after going to the protest to realize how, like, what effect they had on me, on my community, and also on the hostages themselves.
And what about on the decision makers, on the politicians? Do you think when they see people on the streets, big crowds, do you think it impacts their decision making? Or maybe that's not the objective.
I think it's a little bit of a complicated answer. At the beginning, I think that it had a lot more effect on politicians. I think that at some point, the situation got so bad that they didn't really care. But I think that, like Yonathan said, and I elaborated before, protests they have a lot of goals that are not necessarily to convince the politicians. And also, when you protest, you get the news to talk about what you protest. So even if the decision makers ignore us, they have us on the papers the next day. So I think it's like a complicated system that you create, and protesting, in my opinion, is necessary.
It's a way for Israel to tell its story. I mean, people out there protesting we tell the story with our feet. We're out there, we shout, we scream, we hold up signs, and that's a way of saying this is who we are. So definitely it's important, even if not only the decision makers were not affected at some point they started using it against, whether it was against certain factions in Israeli society or for political reasons, but still it strengthened a very large group of people who said, these are our people, this is the Israel we're fighting for. It was doing democracy in action. It wasn't just talking about democracy, it was walking in democracy and making it happen through these protests.
Yonathan started by talking about the elections. And when I was living in Israel for about 3 years in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and I was there over the period when there was about 5 elections. If people remember, the government kept falling. And basically, with each election, there was about the same number on each side of the coalition. Are Israelis' political preferences set? Do they know what they want? It seems that they kept asking the same question and they kept getting the same answer. Do you think people are open to change or vote differently, and why?
First of all, it's not going to be anything like those elections just because of October 7th. We're still in trauma. We're only now starting to get out of the trauma. And obviously it has shaped tremendously the way people understand reality. I also want to believe, and this is where I'm looking for the cracks, because I want to believe that this huge trauma also shifted people's understanding of what we can ignore and what we cannot ignore, because Israel has been avoiding some of the biggest questions that we've had to deal with throughout the years. And October 7th, unfortunately, proved that we cannot ignore them. So whether it is the relationship with the Palestinians and the region and the countries around us, or whether it's the polarization inside us. So it's not going to be the same. We know that Israel has shifted more to the right after October 7th. Again, it's very understandable when people are in fear, and we're interpreting everything through this prism of fear. But it's not going to be the same.
I agree with everything that Ronit said, that October 7th, of course, changed everything. Every day I wake up and I watch the news, and I'm still in shock that the government is still there. It's not, I cannot understand it. I remember on October 7, I went to my base, in the base of my unit in Rosh Hashanah. It's in the eastern side of Israel. And we opened the equipment like storage, and the equipment was so old. Nothing changed since 2006. We didn't have plate armor, and when we went to the Gaza envelope, we did it without plate armor, without like proper protection. And I thought to myself, that's enough to change the government. Such a it made me so angry. It was such a bad thing. Even it's enough that we didn't have the equipment. They sent soldiers without plate armor. It's enough to disband the government. And I was mistaken, of course. And I thought that October 7 will be enough. I thought that even only the equipment shortage will be enough. And I'm still at shock every day that it wasn't enough. But I do believe that it did change a lot of stuff. It's of course not the same as it was in the 5 election. And as Ronit said, there is a little bit leaning to the right. It's understandable. It's the literature in political science said that exposure to terror is making you go lean to the right. I hope it will be temporary and it won't have like a lasting effect. But I do have a lot of hope that it will change. I'm in the streets. I'm talking to a lot of people. I read all the polls from channel 14 to channel 12 to Haaretz. I read everything to be educated about what is happening, and I still have hope. And I'm a warrior by heart. Was born a warrior to a family of warriors. It's the Israeli of me. It's what they taught me in the army. And right now, my back is against the wall when it's come to the election. I don't have anywhere to escape. I have to win this. We have to win this. And we will.
I think that a lot of the times, and especially in the last few years, there's this conception that people cannot change their opinion. Like politicians look at polls, like in Israel, I know that. They look at polls and they're like, oh, so most of the Israelis want 1, 2, 3, so my messages will be 1, 2, 3, I'll try to be 1, 2, 3. But the whole point, I think, of politics is to see what's happening, and then to understand how can I convince, as a politician, how can I convince people that peace is a good thing? Like, how can I convince that we want a good future to our children? So how do I convince what's happening right now to come closer to my opinions? And that's something that a lot of the times, like politicians, and I think people in general, forget, because you see the polls, and like in Israel, I don't know, people are right now a little they turn to the right wing, but the whole point of politics is to convince them to get a little closer to your own opinions.
Ever since October 7th, 2023, Muslim and Jewish communities in Canada have been torn apart.
I've known you for 20 years. You've been at my house for Shabbat supper, I don't know how many times. And for 1 second, you can't put down your friend and just hold my hand?
We're fed a constant stream of Jews and Muslims talking at each other, about each other, but rarely do we hear them talking to each other.
There was, why are you doing this? What's the benefit of doing this?
This podcast aims to do something different. I'm Avi Feingold, a rabbi and a writer with the Canadian Jewish News.
I'm Yafa Sakeja, a Canadian-Palestinian entrepreneur and volunteer with the Canadian Friends of Standing Together.
We're sitting down with Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians from coast to coast and across the political divide, having difficult conversations in good faith.
We are not the Israeli government. Palestinians are not Hamas.
This is the place where we're both supposed to end up, Israeli and Palestinian, Arab and Jewish.
Subscribe to In Good Faith, wherever you listen to podcasts.
There's this idea sometimes that demographics are destiny. Haredim, our population is growing at this rate. The Arab population is growing at this rate. We see these polls that say 60%, 70% of Israeli young people identify with the right wing, and the Tel Aviv left-wing population has like one kid and a dog. The idea of demographics or destiny, as people who are really promoting liberal values, how do you react to that?
That's a good question. You need to be aware and you need to think about the demographic. First, you need to integrate the Haredim into the society for the future of Israel. There is no other choice. There is no future if we don't integrate them to the army and to the workforce. And I do believe that if there will be a change of power in the government, and they will see that there will be a center government with left-wing people and some right-wing people that will do a really good job, it will have a lot of merit and it will make a lot of people come to our sides. The public administration in Israel is terrible. Is dying. The public sector is dying. The services that people get in Israel are terrible. In transportation, in personal security, in the financial crisis is terrible. To buy stuff in the supermarket, it's so expensive. You go to the supermarket and you want to
just the cost of living.
Yeah, the cost of living is terrible, and there's a lot of crime in the Arab community that it's not it's affecting everyone. And I think if there will be a new government that will start to work to change it and to reform and do like a massive reform in the public sector, and people will see the result of it, it will change a lot of minds.
So I want to add that what Yonathan said about the failure of the government. First of all, as Ayala mentioned, the failure of the government, and Yonathan mentioned also the failure of the government around October 7th is still huge, which is, by the way, one of the reasons probably the elections will not be in October, because October is too close to October 7th, Memorial Day. So Netanyahu will probably not want the association to happen there. But I think that one of the things that is happening is that there are a lot of people who have been disenchanted. On the one hand, they hold on very right-wing views, but they also understand and feel that this government is not answering their needs. And one of our goals, one of our challenges is how to create permission structures for people so that they will be able to understand those values of the liberal values that we're promoting in a way that is not just belongs to a certain camp, but belongs to a much broader social coalition. And we want to ensure that this social coalition is based on the idea that, yes, there should be a government of responsibility that takes responsibility for what is happening and for what has happened in the past. So just as one example, there is now a huge, throughout these last 2 years, the huge dispute in Israeli society was around what kind of inquiry commission will look into the events of October 7th and to what led up to October 7th. Should it be a state inquiry commission, or will it be appointed by the government? Obviously, then it will be not necessarily so objective. And so the discourse around it is a lot around you're the boss, you're to blame on one hand, to we cannot trust the Supreme Court, for example, for being the ones who will make the decision on the inquiry commission. We want to frame it in a way that says we need an inquiry that will protect our children, that will safeguard our future. It's not about looking at who's to blame. It's not about saying this is what has happened and this is why it's wrong, because then people feel that they're being attacked. If you were a Netanyahu supporter, and even if you don't think now that Netanyahu is doing such a great job, but you get this message of you're the boss, you're to blame, it immediately creates this alienation that you don't want anything to do with this message. So one of the things we're doing is creating the language that can enable people from a wider spectrum of political views to identify with these values and those needs.
I think about in this country, it's totally different. But a year ago in this country, the conservatives were 20 points ahead, and on a dime things flipped. Who would have thought that New York City would elect a social democratic and non-Zionist candidate? You see things all the time that the conventional wisdom would have bet against. And if you were to sit in the same spot in Israel 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and you were to ask someone, what do you think is going to happen? And they had to bet. I think they would lose their money every time.
They would lose the money. And when we started planning this trip, by the way, it was back in June. Where is Rebecca? The first email, I looked at it, the first email was on June 9th. And I remember thinking, we're going to go in December and talk about hope. And I felt sick because the thought that we will still be in the same situation. We had 56 hostages in Gaza in the beginning of June. The war was still going on in the most horrible way. There was still complete disregard by the government to the pain of the hostage families. And just to think that we will be in December in the same situation was just, I was so it gave me a stomach ache. So just to think about what happened since then and now, we had a war with Iran in the middle. All the hostages apart from one are home, and we pray that he will be back home very soon. And all the live hostages are home, and the war is hopefully stopped and ended. There is still a lot to go, but it's mind-boggling to think about how things have changed. And the important thing is to make sure that Israeli society has the capacity to deal with these changes and doesn't utilize it or weaponize it to become something that you work against each other.
Yeah. I think that there are issues in Israeli society that face Israeli civil society. They're the sort of big challenges, the sort of deep things that will take a lot of work and a lot of years to address those challenges. But I'm curious, what are the places, what are the types of issues that you see as having a little more flexibility maybe in the short term? What are some issues that in the shorter term you think in Israel you could really make progress on? You're not going to solve the huge questions, but what are the sort of things that are a little more, I don't want to say realistic, but shorter time scale.
So I will start from the bigger issue.
She will change the bigger challenges. Don't worry about it. You hold and see. She will.
So I think a really big and main issue that we have in Israel, but actually I think it's a worldwide thing, is we don't have the ability to have a complex conversation, a moral conversation in Israel that doesn't really exist, maybe in only like small circles. But the moral conversation does not exist. And to hold a complex idea or to hold a complex conversation with other people that think totally different than you, that's really, really, really hard to do in Israel these days. Just sitting around the same table with someone who doesn't think politically exactly like you, it's very, 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 very hard. And I feel like maybe the first step to solve that thing, and Ronit talked about it, is to have a different kind of conversation by having different words to real problems. So, for example, like Ronit said, the protesters, they say, you're the boss, so you're the one to blame. And that automatically doesn't allow me to talk to anyone who doesn't think like that. So once I say, I want a country that takes responsibility, or I want my future family to live in a democratic Jewish state where people take responsibility on their actions and cannot do whatever they want just because they're politicians, that opens a whole different conversation with someone who thinks totally different than me. So just maybe changing the language, but still keeping your morals. Yeah, it's not like the blaming disappeared. I'm still very much angry that no one took the blame. But just realizing that changing that will allow me to have a complex conversation and maybe on the long term have also a moral conversation on what is happening.
Yonathan, do you have anything?
It's a difficult choice. It's like choosing which children you love more. But like I said, I do think that the problem in the public sector, in the public administration in Israel can be changed to the better. You just need to get rid of a lot of political appointment and to do deep reform. It sounds not that simple, but I think it's really doable.
I think the public sector, from what I've heard from Israelis, that is something that, if that could be improved, the standard of life.
Life are not good. Life can be much better in Israel. Life are not good and everybody feeling it. So to change it, and it will benefit the citizen of Israel really quickly, and it will have like immediate result. I think that populism is affecting both sides in many ways. When you talk about like a teeny ideology, when you say you are the boss, you are in charge, it's a good slogan.
What does that mean? What does it imply for people who don't know?
You were the prime minister in October 7. You are in charge. And it's very simple.
And
therefore you need to go.
Therefore you need to go.
It's an anti-Bibi slogan, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the politicians from both sides are talking with really, really thin ideology. And I think that Ayala made a really good point. So I will say the public sector and also what Ayala said.
We believe, that's why we do the work we do at the Hartman Institute, that the most fundamental crisis that is currently facing Israeli society is what kind of Judaism will shape our future. And will it be a Judaism that will take us to be a pariah state and a state that just kind of like goes down economically? Or will it be a Judaism that enables us to flourish and to progress and to be the exemplary society that we want to be? And this is the most burning tension now, because the current government has taken the most extreme, ultranationalist, fundamentalist, in some cases messianic version of Judaism, and has taken it to shape our democracy and to shape our public sphere and to shape the way that decisions are being made in Israel and the way that Israel is being presented to the world. And we all know Judaism is very different from that. And the fact that Israelis, I think, are now starting to understand, many people who are not from necessarily the ultra-Orthodox or the Orthodox and ultra-nationalist factions in Israeli society, understand that they have ownership of Judaism not less and maybe should be even more than those people who believe, like Ben Gvir or Machlis, that Judaism should say that we have some sort of a supremacy over Israeli Arabs or over the Palestinians. So the way Judaism will be reconnected to democracy, and the fact that we need a Judaism that will lead into democratic values and for Israel to be more democratic, because we believe that if Israel is less democratic, it will also be less Jewish. The foundations of democracy and Judaism are the same foundations. And we also want it to be a democracy that is inspired by Jewish values.
Right. So often in the diaspora, people who are critical of Israel or critical of Netanyahu are painted as anti-Israel. And I remember this was sort of an interesting thing to see from abroad during the judicial overhaul protests, the way that movement sort of claimed the flag. It really claimed the language of patriotism, clearly saying, no, we stand with the flag. We are pro-Israel, and that's exactly why we're protesting.
Yeah, we started without flags because for us it is so obvious that what we do is because we love our country. So it was like not necessary to have flags because we are in Israel and we're Zionists, and we didn't really think that we needed to. And then suddenly after a few weeks, people started to say, oh, you're traitors, you hate Israel, we don't, stop doing that. So we brought, there's stories of people that had in their cars 40 flags that were going with them everywhere in day-to-day life. And then Shabbat came and they took all of these flags and you see them giving them to people, and all of the protest is totally blue and white, and it was really a beautiful reclaiming, I think. Yeah.
Earlier I spoke about these 5 elections that it felt like, well, we keep asking people the same question, we keep getting back the same answer. And with those elections, the question on the ballot felt like the main question facing Israeli society was yes Bibi or no Bibi. Do you think we have to be asking a different question, or what's the question we should be asking? Is it yes Bibi or no Bibi?
It should definitely not be yes Bibi or no Bibi. That's not value. That's just very thin politics, very powerful and painful. But that's not who we are. As Karen said at the beginning, we are hope. It's not stam. It's not just by coincidence that Hatikva is about hope, because it's not just the distant idea of there will be hope somewhere in the future, but we act through hope. And that means that we take the values and the ideas that we believe in and we formulate them into a story of who we want to be and what we want to be. So definitely it shouldn't be around yes or no Bibi. It should be about these foundational questions of who we are in the region, about the relationship between Judaism and democracy, and how to make sure that the rules of the game of democracy are kept. This will be one of the main questions for the elections. If the judicial overhaul / reform continues, in what form and how these the checks and balances are reestablished. It will also be about shared responsibility within civil society. And as Yonathan mentioned, the ultra-Orthodox serving in the army will be a huge question for Israelis. And we want to make sure that the platform, the political and ideological platform that the parties hold, and this is one of the things we're working on at Hartman, is making sure that there is a strong and deep understanding of what are the ideological principles for a wide variety, not just for one party, for all the parties that believe in liberal values, of what it means to be a Jewish democratic state.
I tell all the young people that I work with in Brothers and Sisters in Arms, my student, I teach the Navy cadet in the University of Haifa, and I tell them, don't think that there is someone that knows better than you about what is good for you. Have some chutzpah. When you talk to even older people, even Chavrei Knesset member, government official, minister, don't think they know better than you. Take your future in your hand. Make sure that you are active, that you're doing stuff, that you are getting up in the morning to change the reality, and you can change it. It doesn't matter that you are young people. You can still do it, and you need to do it. And when you vote, when you make a choice, be very, very smart on what is your choice, and make sure that it's exactly in your values. The man that you are vote for, or of any decision, the organization that you are with.
Yeah, I think that the question is definitely about the future of Israel, and in my opinion changed through the last years. I grew up thinking that there will be this superhero politician that will go into politics and will save us all and everything will be fine again.
You're like you're also waiting for a Mashiach.
Absolutely. A liberal Bibi. Liberal Bibi. Yeah.
Without the donkey. Without the donkey. I realized that that's not going to happen. And when I see the future of Israel, I look at my fellows in Chazon and the alumni in Chazon that I'm really blessed to work with. And I understand that this is a group effort. Good people with good intentions, with liberal, democratic, Jewish morals need to flood the system. That is how I see the future getting better. That's how I see a good future. So it's absolutely not Bibi or not Bibi. It's are we going to be able to have a democratic, liberal Jewish state?
In the diaspora, we read, and in the international community in general, we read in the headlines, there's a very small set of characters when you watch the Israel TV show. There's, Netanyahu and Gantz and Lapid and sort of a very similar looking,
white men,
yes. A small cast of characters, and I know and you know that there's this whole other world, whether it's Shatil or it's Hartman or it's Brothers and Sisters in Arms or it's Standing Together, or there's all of these, such a vibrant world out there that you might never know existed if you only read the newspapers. but you should all still read the newspapers, especially the Canadian Jewish News. I wanted to know who your role models were, or if you had anyone that felt like a role model for you, either in the past or in the present.
It's a good question, and I really need to think about it. So many examples, and I think that if I will not mention some of them, they will get offended. So I will say my mother as first. But I really mean it. My mother, when I was young, she used to work in a lot of non-profit organizations. She was a lawyer for social justice, and she represent a lot of minority in cases that she couldn't want them, and sometimes she did one, and it was amazing. And that is the story that I was told when I was young. She worked with the Ethiopian community, and with the battered women, and a lot of minority, and fought really, really hard for them. And I cannot not be political active after the example I had in my childhood, and I cannot not fight. I have to fight like she did.
Yeah, so for me, I think it connects to the last question. I truly believe that every single one of my friends is absolutely an inspiration for me. My friends from the protest, my close, it's like 40 people, yeah.
Your 40 closest friends.
My 40 closest friends, yeah, from the protest. No, but if I need to choose one, and Yonathan reminded me, my grandfather, he was a chazan in a shul in London, and I grew up with him, and he always looked for the person that needed the most help. My mother used to tell stories about how he used to raise money for all of these poor families or poor kalot. Brides, thank you. The word just disappeared from my mind. But he used to do all of these little things, and he was the most humble person I ever knew in my entire life. So like Yonathan said, I don't think I could have grown up without being an activist that fights for justice. And what motivates me personally is that I get very, very upset when I see that something is not right. I'm like, how do people not see that? And that really drives me to do something about it. So definitely my grandfather, but yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So we have a few Q&A questions. We'll get through as many as we can in the next 10, 15 minutes. So, question from the audience. The Canadian Jews want to know, what is the best way for Canadian Jews to support a liberal, democratic Israel? What do you think we can do here?
Support the Hartman Institute. Okay.
I think that having this connection in all sorts of ways is so crucial for our future, like your future here, our future in Israel, the future for all of the Jews all around the world. And we see that throughout the 3 days that we're already here in North America. I keep seeing how incredibly important this connection is, and how not obvious it is to a lot of Israelis. And I'm just thinking about how can we go back to Israel and change that, because I think like we're holding each other, like we're in this together, we're facing maybe different problems, but we understand each other. And this connection, it gives me a lot of strength. Like I will go back to Israel and I will have so much energy to do things. And I just keep thinking about how we can keep this connection, but with like all of the citizens in Israel. Like it's very, very, very important. So I think building a connection that is long and that will stay.
So far in my trip to North America, I'm freezing, but also really empowered, really, really empowered from meeting different demographic in the Jewish community. You have such a pride in the Jewish culture and such a pride in your identity, in the story, in the history. It's so empowering. And I talked to the teen fellowship program of Hartman, and they are so bright, and they're also trying their best to support Israel and also stick to their liberal views. And you are doing great. I do believe. No, I'm so empowered, and I'm so proud to be here and see you. It's really amazing. I'm at awe. Good job.
So I have an older sister, and every time we have a conversation where she tells me, she doesn't tell me what to do, but she asks me questions that really piss me off. And I sent her a text message about something a week and a half ago, and I said, yes, we made this decision after I had this conversation where you really annoyed me, but you were right. And she said, I'm going to make a sticker out of it. You really annoyed me, but you were right. I think that kind of relationship where you know that there is love and that there is care, but there is also challenging and asking the difficult questions. And yes, sometimes we will push back, Israelis in general. Sometimes there will be a feeling of, why are you saying that? But at the end of the day, asking us the questions and making sure that we don't avoid the difficult issues and we don't shy away from looking straight in the eye into what we really need to deal with, that's something that sometimes can only be done from here. It's very hard to do it when you're in the midst of everything. I mean, there's a midst of everything here as well, a different kind of midst of everything, but I think that's a really important part of the relationship.
I know a lot of people in the diaspora sort of struggle with this. I think one response that you sometimes get from Israelis is you don't send your kids to the army, you don't pay taxes here, you don't.
Well, I think yes, but or I will say yes and because I'm in North America. The amount of challenges, as Yonathan said, the amount of challenges that you are facing here, and that is directly connected to the way Israel is behaving or our government is conducting itself, means that it's totally we're holding one rope.
You are all clearly bright and passionate students and activists. Can you share either a text, a lesson, or a skill that you learned from Chazon that helps you impact the issues that are important to you?
Yes, that's a good question. So I think a really great tool that I took from Chazon was actually taught by Ronit. She's a great teacher, and just saying. So when we were in the room together, me and my friends, and we were trying to understand how to have better tools to help people or to protest or maybe to write our opinions or to do like something in a more efficient way. Ronit taught us this thing, and she had this metaphor of a party, but we took it to the protest world. So in a party, you can be part of on the dance floor. You can be dancing, you can be doing whatever, but you can also like stand aside and look at the people and look who's dancing, who is just going out the door, who is coming in. And we took that to the protesting, like the metaphor, we took that to the protesting world. And we were like, yeah, you can be part of the protesting that are walking, or you can be aside, and a lot of the times you can be literally on the fences, like on a higher level. And you can see people coming into the protest and maybe walking. Some people are stopping and like saying maybe hello to their friends or walking back. So the idea of looking outside the picture and seeing who are the people that I want to help, like seeing what are their needs. And it's interesting because I think what Ronit talked about like the older sister relationship, I think you guys are doing that for Israel, and that's so important. So I'm taking that tool with me to everywhere I go.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I add as an anecdote? Because when I told them, it's so sweet and wonderful to hear this, but when I told them this metaphor about the balcony and going on the balcony, and I said, well, in the protest, you can go up on the fence in front of the president's house and look from there. And they looked at me and they said, if you go on the fence in front of the president's house, they'll arrest you.
That's true.
That is all the questions we have time for this evening. So I want to give a big thank you to everyone. Thank you to Beth Sadek. Thank you to Hartman. Have a good night and safe driving.